Hello and welcome to day one of our Let's Create Roblox series. In the first part of this series, we're going to create a simple obby. It's going to be a pretty basic game, but an obby is a pretty common game in Roblox, and it serves a pretty good purpose for us because it's going to allow us to go over a lot of the basics of Roblox Studio and creating games. There won't be a whole lot of scripting, but we'll get to practice placing parts and manipulating parts and changing their color. And we can get familiar with Roblox Studio so that when it comes time to get into the more advanced things, we'll have a good foundation of the basics. So when you open Roblox Studio, you should see, if you've logged in already, you should see something similar to what I'm looking at right now. And this is your kind of landing page where you can go in and retrieve some of the games you've already created. Or in our case, you can use the new tab, which is at the top left. Mine's highlighted, so it's new with the plus sign and it says new. And with that selected, we'll see that we have a couple templates here. And if you don't, just make sure all templates is selected. And with all templates selected, we'll see we have a base plate, we have flat terrain, etc., etc. And what we want to do is we want to select base plate. It's the one with the gray colored ground and kind of a blue sky. And so we'll select that, and it'll take a brief moment to load. And with that loaded, we can kind of go over a couple of these panels that are around. And so the main one, the biggest one in the center, is our game window. And this is kind of a visual representation of our workspace. And this is where we're going to place parts and we're going to build our game. So that's our game window. And to the right of that, we have our Explorer window. And we'll be using this a lot as well. And this can be a little bit overwhelming, but we don't have to worry about too much of what it is right now. We'll get into that in future videos. But just know this is our Explorer window. We'll touch this today as well. Right above our game window, we have at the very top, we have a couple tabs. So we have Home all the way at the top. We have next to that is Model, Test, View, and you probably see Plugins. So we want to make sure Home is selected. And below that, we have some controls and some options that we can do. And so the first thing we'll do, so we see we have select, we have move, we have scale, and we have rotate. These are some tools we'll be using a lot. And to the right of that, we have this insert section, which is like we have toolbox, we have part, and we have UI. These are pretty important. We're going to use them. Right to the right of that, we have our edit section. And edit will let us customize our parts. And so this gives us material, color, and a couple other things. And don't worry, you don't have to memorize all this right now. We'll be going into it in depth, but this is just a very quick introduction. So we'll get into the details just to get familiar with where things are. And so next to that is test, and we will be using test to press play and stop, and that'll let us jump into our game with the Roblox characters that you play with every day. And you get to see your character inside of the game that we're going to be creating. So back into our game window, if you put your mouse inside the game window and you hold the right mouse button, so like right click and then hold it, move the mouse, you can look around. And so we want to look around and we want to see, what we have out here, which is nothing, just the base plate, which is what this gray ground is called. And we have our sky. So kind of position the camera pointing downward to look at the ground. And we can hold that right mouse button again. And if we press W, like you're in Roblox, W, A, S, and D on your keyboard, if we press those, we can see that we move. We get to move through the world. So we can move forward, we can move backwards with W and S. We can move to the sides with A and D. And then we can even fly up and down. So if we hold E, we fly up, so we get further away from the ground. And if we hold Q, we fly down and we get closer to the ground. So we can fly up a little bit, get some good distance. We can look a little bit at the ground, and we're going to put in our first part. So my color is different than yours, so I'm going to set it back to like a standard gray, which is pretty close to what you have. And we'll start by inserting our first part. So to insert our first part, we will look above our game window, and we'll see that we have this ice cube looking blue cube. And that is how we will insert a part. We'll just click that. And then we'll see that this this brick gets placed inside of our game window. And so when we click our brick, we can see that in our Explorer, the part got highlighted. It's called part, and it shows that we have it selected. It also has a blue outline around it, and that's another indicator that it's selected. And what we should do first is change the color of this brick so that it's easier to see. And so to do that, we are going to go up above the game window again in that little edit section where we see material and color. And before we go too far, I just want to reiterate that if we don't see this stuff, just make sure we're in the Home tab, or Model has the same thing, but we'll stay in the Home tab. And in the Home tab is where we should see Part, and we should also see Color. And so we have this color square, and it says the word color beneath it, and under that we have a drop-down arrow. And so when we click that, I don't think you'll see it in this video, but you'll see it on your screen. When you click that drop-down arrow, this hexagon appears with a bunch of colors inside. And so you can pick any color you want, and it'll change the color of the part that we have in the window. So once you pick a color that you are comfortable with, we'll move on. So if you'd like, you can pause the video here, kind of maybe go back if you need to see something again. So pause the video, go ahead and change the part to a color that you like, and then we'll move on. Okay, so we have a part that we placed in the game world, and we changed its color. So now we need to change its size because it's kind of small. And so at the top, right above our game window, where the same row that we have color, if we go to the left, we'll see that we have our tools, which are select, move, scale, and rotate. And we want to scale this part. So we'll click scale, which is that square with a little arrow in the middle. And when we click that, we should see these handles, these circles around our part. We have some green ones, some blue ones, and some red ones. If you don't see that, click scale again and see if you see it. If you have scale selected and you still don't see it, that could be because your part's not selected. So with scale enabled, if you click your part, you should see these handles around your part. So now that we have these handles, we can grab the blue one that's closest to us and we can pull it towards us. And it'll show that our part is getting longer. And then we can grab a red handle and pull it to the side. And if yours are not, you're facing a different direction, so you're grabbing different handles, that's okay. But essentially all we're doing is making this part bigger. And so we have this bigger part now, and it's blue, and it is our custom platform. This will be our starting platform. And so with this part, let's make sure we have it selected, and we'll make a copy of this part. So to make a copy of this part, with it selected, if we go to the top left, all the way to the top left, we'll see we have copy, cut, and duplicate. And that's what we want to do. We want to duplicate this part. So with our part selected, we'll click duplicate, and we'll see over here in our Explorer, in the list, we have two parts now. And the new part we created is selected. So we can change our tool to move. So if we go up above the game window where we have color and part, all the way to the left, we had scale. Right next to that is move. And when we click it, we'll see these arrows around the part. If you don't see these arrows, same thing, just Try to make sure your part is selected. It doesn't matter which one because they're the exact same. So we'll make sure it's selected, and we want to see these arrows. If we still don't see the arrows, click move again, and we should see the arrows. And once you see these arrows, we're going to click and hold the green arrow pointing up. It's kind of in the middle. It might be a little hard to see. And we'll click and hold it, and we'll drag it up, and it'll be moved up above our previous one. And it looks like it grew a little bigger than our old one, but it actually didn't. It just got closer to us, and so it appears bigger, and things far away will appear smaller. And now we have these two platforms, and we want to change the color of one of them. So with our top platform selected, we're going to change the color, and we can do that the same way we changed the color previously. So right above our game window, we have this color, and we're going to select the drop down arrow. And again, you won't see the color palette on mine, but it should show on yours. And when that color palette appears, you can select a new color. I'll select the pink. And with that new color, we can differentiate between our two blocks. And so I have my lower one is a blue, my higher one is a pink, and now we have our two separate platforms. So kind of like we discussed at the beginning, I'm going to zoom out by holding right click to kind of move my camera to look straight at it. And then I'm going to press S, which will pull the camera away from what we're looking at. And then I'm with my top part selected, I'm going to click rotate, which is at the top left in our tools, right next to select, move, and scale. I'm going to click rotate, and that's going to put these really large circles around our part. And this allows us to rotate our part across any one of the three axes. And so we can point our camera up to see that top blue circle. If you don't see this, then same thing, make sure rotate is selected. If you still don't see it, make sure your part is selected, and you should see these circles. And before we actually do the rotating, let's make sure we can rotate. And so up at the top, right above our tools, we have home and model. Let's go into model. And in the model tab, we want to make sure that rotate is not checked. So rotate in the snap to grid section, we want to make sure it's unchecked. So if you have a blue check mark there, go ahead and check that or uncheck it, and that'll make sure we can rotate freely. So with the check mark undone that was in the model tab, we will uncheck rotate and we'll go back to the home tab. And now you should be able to grab this top blue circle, and you should be able to rotate your platform freely. And we're going to rotate it. It's got to be it can't be on too big of an incline. So maybe about 45 degrees. Use your best judgment, but just a slant. And we'll let it go, and that'll give us our new rotation. And with a rotated part, now we can go to move, and we'll see that our arrows have also rotated. The green one's not pointing straight up anymore. It's pointing straight up with the same rotation that our part has. And so that top green arrow we can grab, and we can move our part down, and it should kind of intersect with our base part that we have at the bottom. And with them being different colors, they won't blend all the way in, but we want them to be about at the same level. And so now we have this ramp. And so now that we have this ramp, now is probably another good time to pause. If you're behind, you can rewind the video to get caught up. And then once you're caught up, we can move on to moving that bottom platform is what we're going to do. So if you're already caught up, no need to pause. If you need to catch up, then go ahead and take the time now to pause, go back and get caught up, and then we'll continue. Okay, so I will select our bottom platform now, and I have the arrows around the platform because I have move selected. So with move selected, we have these arrows, and I'm going to grab the red arrow. It doesn't matter which one, but what I want to do is move the platform to the beginning of the ramp. And that's going to make it look like we can run across this platform and then start running up the ramp. So now that we have this there, a couple things that we should go over real quick. If you accidentally grabbed your ramp and moved your mouse, you'll see that it uh, flattened out and now it is laying on the ground. The best thing to do is to hit this arrow at the top left, right next to File. If you're on a Mac, it might not say File, but there's this arrow at the top left. It's a blue arrow facing left, and it means undo. And we're going to click that to get our ramp back. If you cannot click it to get your ramp back, then our next thing we can do is make sure Move is selected with our ramp piece, and we're going to just do the same thing. We're going to raise it up using that top green arrow. We're going to use Rotate, and we're going to rotate that blue, the blue circle to give it that slant we want. And then I'm going to go back to Move to make sure it gets back on the ground. And then I'll move my platform back to the base of our ramp. So at the end of the day, we want to have this flat piece and we want to have a ramp coming up. And so once we have this, we're going to go ahead and press play. But before we press play, we can expect that our ramp is going to fall apart. And the reason why we want to press play and see that is so when we apply the fix to make the ramp not fall apart, you can see why it works or what it does. So let's go ahead and press play. And that's going to put the character that you play Roblox with inside of the game you're creating. And you can see that my ramp fell apart for sure. Now I have two pieces on the ground, and we definitely don't want that. So once you've run around and you've had your character in your game, let's go ahead and press stop. It's at the top. Play is also at the top. I probably rushed into that. So right above our game window, we have play and stop in the test area. Pressing play will get you into the game. Pressing stop will turn off the game. Anytime we're making changes, we want to make sure we're not in play mode. We want to make sure play is blue and stop is gray. If play is gray and stop is like that red color, that means we are in play mode, and any changes we make will go away. So we don't want to be in play mode. So confirming that our stop is gray and we're not in play mode, we're going to go ahead and anchor our ramp to make sure that it doesn't fall apart. So to do that, we'll click our ramp, the part that's slanted upwards, click it to make sure it's selected, and right above our game window where we have that color, right next to that on the right is a 3-item list. We have group, lock, and anchor. With our ramp selected, let's go ahead and click anchor, and it doesn't do anything visibly different. So the only way we can tell is that there's like this background on anchor now. There's one other way to tell, but for now we'll just click anchor, make sure it's got that darker background, and we'll press play again. And we can see that our ramp will stay there. So what anchor does is it stops all movement on a part. It anchors it just in space, no matter where it is, and that part is that part and can never move until it is unanchored. So it's something great and something we'll use a lot in an obby, because all the platforms that are out there, we want to not move, unless we're making some kind of obstacle with a moving wall. But the platforms that we jump on, we need to make sure they're not going to fall down into space. So we'll use anchor. So once we confirm that our ramp is there, we'll press stop. And if your ramp is still falling down, let's just make sure you select the ramp and you have anchor selected right next to color. So with anchor selected, let's go ahead and anchor our bottom platform as well. So I'll click to select the bottom platform, and I'll do the same thing. Right next to color, right on the right of it, we have this list, group, lock, and anchor. I'm going to go ahead and select anchor. And that'll just make sure this one's anchored as well. Once we're ready and we have our platform set up, we're going to delete this gray floor. So when any players fall off of the platform, they'll have to restart. So now we have these two parts anchored. Now we need to make another platform where the user can, or the player can jump to. So we're going to put that right here at the end of the ramp, at the top of the ramp. We're going to give it a gap, and it'll be a pretty easy jump because it's the first obstacle. So let's get started with that. So to do this, we're going to select our flat bottom platform, the one we first created. Just ensure it's selected with either the blue border or the arrows or handles that might be around it based on your tool selection. And we'll duplicate it again, same way we did before. So with it selected, top left, we have copy, cut, and delete. Let's go ahead and click, not delete, duplicate. And let's go ahead and click duplicate. And that'll make another part. And if we make sure that move is selected, then we can click that green arrow facing up, and we can pull this part up. And we want to make it about, close to the height of the ramp visually. We can let it go, and it will stay there. And since the part we copied was anchored, this part is anchored too, which is very helpful. So we have this part, we've raised it up. Now we need to move it to the end of that ramp and give it some distance. So, it's kind of easy to jump, but it could be kind of hard. We'll see. We'll play and test it out. But we should have something that looks pretty similar to this. We have a flat platform. We have this platform on an angle, which we're calling our ramp. And then we have a raised platform that is a short distance away from our ramp. So if you have these three things, you can press play again. It'll bring your character into your game, and we can just test that jump and make sure that that jump is, achievable. So I'm on this platform. I'll run up the ramp, and I'm just gonna try to jump, and I made it. So this is achievable, so I'm gonna leave it the way it is. If yours is not achievable, we'll go ahead and press stop, and you can click your platform. Make sure you have move selected so that you have your arrows, and you can just move the platform a little bit closer or farther to, get it to the place you need it to be, pretty easy for the player to jump on, because again, it's the first obstacle, and we can make more difficult obstacles later in the course. Okay, so if you don't have this, a couple things that could have went wrong is that the anchor, make sure that all your parts are anchored. Yeah, I think I'm not sure. If there's anything else, please feel free to comment, and I'll reply as quick as I can. Or if you're in the Discord channel, then you can place a comment there. I can reply. Or the Facebook page or the group, I can jump in there as well. But we should have something similar to this. We have these three platforms, the ramp, and then the two flat platforms. And the last thing we need to do is tell the game where we're going to start, where your players are going to start. Because when we press play now, you might land on your ramp, or me, I land right next to it. So if I were to start this game with this base plate being gone, I would just keep falling into space, and I would keep dying. And so we need to tell the game where we want our players to spawn. So we can do that. We press stop to get out of the game, and we're going to go right next to, we're going to make sure we have that bottom flat, the very first part we created, we're going to make sure that's selected. And then when we look in Explorer, we'll see that one of those parts are highlighted, and that is the part that we have selected. And when we hover our mouse over that, we see this plus sign. And so when we click the plus sign, I'm pretty sure you guys can't see mine, but you should see a window. And in this window, it says like script and maybe decal or a couple things. But at the top, it says search object, and that's what we're looking for. So in here, we're going to type SP, and SP like spinach, like the first two letters of spinach, everybody's favorite. And so we have SP, and that's going to give us the start to what we're looking for. And so what we're looking for is spawn location. And spawn location tells Roblox where the players should start in your game. And it's at the top of the list. It's grayed out, so it's probably a little bit hard to see at first, but it's there. It's the very first item in the list, and we're going to click it. and it will add a spawn location with the last color that we used. So my last color was pink, so my spawn location is pink. And now we can grab this spawn location, just click it and hold, and we can move it around. And I want to move it on top of my bottom platform. And with it on top of this platform, I want to scale it down a little bit. So I'm going to go up to scale with it selected. I'm going to go to scale, and it gives me my handles, and I'm going to use these handles to make this smaller. So it doesn't matter what size you have it, but when you play it in the game, when you press play to test, you'll see kind of how big it is. But now that we have a spawn location, now when we press play and we go into play mode, we'll see that our character always lands on the spawn location, and that's what we want. We don't want to fall into the abyss. We want to fall on our spawn location, which is where we want all players to start, and now they can start the obstacle course. So they can run up the ramp, they can jump on this platform, and go on and on and on for whatever kind of obstacles we add. So if you have not gotten that to work, then now's a good time to rewind the video and see if there's anything that you may have missed. If there's something that isn't working for you, again, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll try to work with you on getting that up to speed. One last thing we'll want to do is make sure we save our game. We always want to make sure we save. And so to save our game, we'll go up to the top left and we'll select File. And I'm pretty sure you probably don't see the list that's showing for me, but yours should be something similar. We should see New and Open from File and things like that. And if we keep looking down the list, we'll see Save to File, and we'll see Save to File As. And that's the one we want, is Save to File As. And so we'll click Save to File As, and you can bring this onto your desktop or in documents, and you can name it anything you want, and it's going to take this whole game and it's going to save it as one file, an RBXL file. And so pick any file name you want, for example, my first game or simple Obby or anything. So you can say simple Obby, and when you click save, it will save your game. And you can tell it's saved by looking in the game window where you see the parts that you added. Right at the top, there's this little tab, and mine says simpleobby.rbxl, and that's how I know that my game is saved. And so with our game saved, that is the last step you want to do for today's tutorial. But if you've made it here, then you're caught up with the class, and you're ready for day 2. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Happy creating.